And it's Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services, talking business today from our home headquarters in Harrison, New York. CBSI has been providing benefit programs to the credit card industry for 30 years. Now, this is a special edition as we're trying to talk to as many professionals as we can who have insight on how we can cope with the coronavirus crisis. We're very happy to have with us Professor Victor Petenkemani from Mercy College, where he is an associate dean. He is also a 2 master's degree graduate of the Wharton School. Professor, good to have you with us today.
Good to have you, Ken, and thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Now, tell us your impression right now we were talking a little bit on LinkedIn this week about the impact on the stock market. It's down 10,000 points essentially over the last couple of weeks. Big drops this week. Why has the stock market been affected so quickly by this coronavirus crisis?
I think, we are living in very unusual time. I mean, this is unprecedented. I think we can maybe look back to the 1918 flu pandemic to see, a similar event. I think the uncertainty itself of this current environment is what is kind of jolting the stock market. I think what investors don't like, it's unpredictability. Right now, we don't really know how many people are affected, and now all the government are taking steps to really lock down the cities, the states. So this is really the core structure of our economy are being affected. So we are a market-based economy, and market-based economy work assume the free flow of activities, and now with people being forced to stay home, this is really completely disrupting the fabric of the society and the economy.
Absolutely, and this is something that looks like it's going to go on for more than a few weeks into the months, perhaps into the summer. So it's not going to be relieved soon. The federal government, and again, we were talking and going back a little bit with a group on LinkedIn this week, the impact of the federal government, the House of Representatives and the Senate were working on different bills to aid businesses, to aid consumers through this crisis. What's been your impression of what the federal government has been able to offer in its legislative proposals?
It's a good start. I think the government is slow in acting. I think the Fed stepped in to put off the fire. Obviously, from the financing part. Obviously, one of the issues that we are seeing in the business environment is the ability of companies to get funding. So this is reminiscent of the challenges that we observed during the financial crisis in 2008. So I think the Fed is stepping in to do what he has to do to provide to address some of the stress in the short-term financing and provide funding to the capital market. But that's not enough. I think my point was really this is a demand side problem. I think with people staying home, people not consuming, I think the only way we can address it is by finding solutions on how people can continue consuming. We are consumption-driven economy, so we have to quickly give money to people and push people to spend. What is the best way to achieve that? I think that's the conversation that needs to happen. And there are a few ideas actually floating out there that could be implemented very, very quickly? Is it basically ensuring that companies are going to continue paying salaries to their employee? So what is the supply chain? How do we quickly give money to people so that we don't have when we have a collapse in the consumption, which is going to that's the major issue that needs to be addressed very, very quickly.
Certainly. Now, in the prior crisis, there was an emphasis on extending unemployment benefits to those who lost jobs excuse me, for a number of months into extra years at some points for literally millions of unemployed workers. There's been a proposal to give every household who under a certain income level $1,000 check immediately within a matter of weeks to provide immediate resources for necessities. Yeah. Is there a part of the federal response that you think could be the most effective?
So the unemployment benefits obviously is a medium. It takes time, right? The application process itself is lengthy. So and it doesn't really cover everybody, right? So that's not the only solution. I think it's part of the solution. The 1,000 check, it's not enough. I really think that that check should be bigger. Yes, limiting it based on income level, I think it makes sense. But it has to be a bigger check. Remember, if we take the proxy, the Chinese economy is contracting by 13%, right? So
wow.
And so if our economy contract to a similar level, we are talking about nearly $3 trillion in contraction this year. So one trillion in government spending might not be enough to compensate for a $3 trillion drop in GDP, right? And that 1 trillion is actually a combination of spending and sending check to households, but also giving tax rate to companies. I don't think really giving tax breaks to companies are going to be to address these short-term shocks into the system.
Now, Professor, one of the companies that you worked at earlier in your career was Delta Airlines. Airlines are being tremendously affected in a downturn in passengers, cutbacks in service. Just warnings to avoid travel, certainly overseas. The State Department had a notice yesterday. What can the airlines do besides cut back on the number of flights that they're going to offer? Obviously, it's going to have an impact on employment in the field. What do you see the impact on the airlines and also the greater travel industry, hotels, car rentals?
Yeah, no, I think they are in the front line of this issue, right? When people are not traveling, obviously, there's. I remember with 9/11 when the entire air traffic was shut down for nearly 2 or 3 weeks. And that was a significant blow to the airline industry. I remember when I was working for Delta, it was a slow grind towards bankruptcy. I remember Delta filing for bankruptcy in 2005. It took some time. Delta had plenty of cash. I think there's a lot of cash that the airlines have now. I think what the government should do, the government should definitely step in and implement what the government did with GM. When the government injected cash and took equity stake, like through preferred shares, equity stake in those airlines, I think that would be the right approach of using government's spending and the taxpayer dollar to bail out the airline. It's not a question of whether or not this airline needs to be bailed out. They have to be bailed out. Transportation is a critical infrastructure of the country. Bailing out the airline now is going to allow a stronger recovery because we are going to recover. So you have to be in a position for those airlines to quickly ramp up operation once we address this coronavirus issue.
And one of the areas that's been very frustrating, I think, to the medical and emergency providers is not being able to get the hospital gowns, the protective equipment, the masks, the different types of equipment that they say is a priority for being able to treat the patients. And what they're expecting is a surge of patients in a couple of weeks when this starts to, the coronavirus starts to hit to a peak. The United States took a lot of pride in its being able to change into a wartime production during World War II, especially, and also even the space program in the 1960s. I think they said 4% of gross national product went into the space program for a few years. Is that something that industry can do to change on a dime to produce the hospital necessities that are needed right away?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's what the president just did, right? The president today just issue an executive order, and basically is going to use his authority to mass produce all this equipment that are needed, and the country is well equipped to do that. I think the private sector is the engine of this economy. I think you know, the industries out there can definitely step in and produce this. I think it's the right thing to do. And the U.S. is very capable of doing this. I mean, the military does that all the time around the world, right? When you have emergency around the world, who step in? Usually the United States military does that. So I think I'm very confident that we are going to come out of this. I think the country has the capability to do this. I see, you know, once we address this emergency and we have the capability to do that, I think we will recover quickly.
Yes, I think of the efforts of the United States Army in particular fighting the Ebola virus in Africa. One of our friends up at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the superintendent, Lieutenant General Darrell Williams, was very involved in providing leadership to that effort. During his career, he was credited with saving thousands of lives on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Professor, one
yeah,
of
the military, the military is very capable. This is what they do. I think that command and control structure that the military has, I think we should utilize that.
Absolutely, very dedicated people. And in the United States, the military trains, I understand, about 1/3 of the doctors in the country through various programs, and a great resource. Now, one of the things that Mercy College has really been a leader in is online education.
Yeah.
Which I think schools all around the country now are really scrambling to identify how to do it. Mercy, when I taught there for a number of years, 10 years ago, was set up, and I always tell people you had students in over 15 countries that were taking courses at Mercy, and so it gives you the background. And what are some of the keys to being successful at online education? Something that I think the whole field of American education is really trying to duplicate in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, no, I think it's the key is to have the infrastructure, right? Do you have the infrastructure that can allow you to quickly transition from an in-person operation to an online operation? I think that we have been able to do that. I think it takes some work to do. It takes engaging faculty and making sure that faculty are ready to make that transition, and that's what we have been working on. And he also makes sure he also take on addressing, look at addressing on the student side. Are the student ready to be able to take the courses online? So you have to prepare also the student to be familiar with the technology, and look at and be ready to help your student make that transition. Do you have the resources the advising resources that the student need, and also the counseling resources. You have to look at, I mean, this is a very trying time. This is a tough time, and we have to make sure that our students are also taken care of. So that's what as a leader of an academic institution, this is really what I'm spending my time looking at.
Tell us, Professor, we appreciate your time and expertise. So what are some of the programs in business and others that you're involved with at Mercy College? You have campuses, headquarters in Dobbs, Ferry, New York, right off the Hudson River, but also you have campuses in other places in the area. Tell us a little bit about the school and the programs you have.
So yeah, the School of Business prides itself with offering a quality education in business. So what we have been pushing, it's for a student to get the knowledge of data. Obviously, in this new economic environment driven by technology, we want a student to understand that new economy, and understanding how to extract information from data. It's critical. So we, in addition to the traditional program in finance, accounting, marketing, international business, we introduce a bachelor's degree in data analytics. We are introducing a master's degree in data analytics. Our MBA program already had a concentration in managerial analytics. As you can, so that's really showing you what is the direction we're going to. In addition to being well knowledgeable about the traditional skill set in those subject area, you have to add the analytical skills. So in addition to that, in this, Mercy has always been a pioneer in business education. So what we are thinking now is also looking at how do we identify and help our students to understand risk. So we just received a grant from Spencer Educational Foundation to start a program in risk management. So this could not be a better timing. So we'll be working on starting at least a certification program in risk management, and to prepare our students to better address some of these business issues, just as what we are talking about, the impact of this pandemic.
Absolutely, and my sister, Dr. Mary Kraetzer, has been a professor at Mercy for majority of her career. She's still teaching online courses in sociology and public health, and is very proud of her career at Mercy. I guess you have a final thought for us today on how businesses can best cope with serving their customers, taking care of their employees and staff through this crisis?
I just want to say that we are going to get through this. I think the 1918 pandemic, it was catastrophic, primarily because, we were not prepared. I think our society today is well equipped to handle this crisis. We are a technology-driven society. We have been able to transition quickly because technology is very well adopted by the entire society. So I'm very confident that once we address the health side of this crisis, and when we find a solution to cure people, and when we have an option for to protect people from the impact of the virus, once that's addressed, the country and the global economy will be able to bounce back very, very quickly. I really think that we are going to be able to recover quickly.
Well, that's good to hear, and we appreciate your optimism and also your expertise. Professor Victor Petenkemani, the Associate Dean of the School of Business at Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry, New York, locations around the metropolitan area. Thank you so much for joining us today on CBSI Talking Business. I hope we can have you back as a guest very soon.
Thank you, Ken, and stay safe.
Thank you, you too, and all of our audience. Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services.